Hi everyone, and a massive welcome to this British Science Week live lesson with the Convex Seascape Survey. Today what we're going to be looking at is, can whales change the climate? Very shortly we will meet our wonderful scientists Carlos and Diego, but before that we've got some wonderful shout outs from the hundreds of schools joining. We have Oak Class in Sacred Heart. We've got 4G at Highfield, South Farnham. We've got Holly Class at Brookfield Park Primary, 5A at Highfield, years 3, 4, 5 and 6 at Brookfield Park Primary School. Hi to everyone so far. We've got years 3 and 4 at Monkton Church of England. Big wave to you guys and to everybody. 4 and H and 4 and Emma Green Primary School. Year 3, Mrs. Grant at St Mary's Church England Primary School. North Coast, we've got Pear Tree Primary. We've got Year 4 at Sheffield Girls. We've got Fairchilds Primary 346. We've got Ashfield Pratt. Oldcliffe First School, years 3 and 4. Chepstow House. Year 5 at Dolphin. Year 3 at Homewood House Prep School. Huntly Church of England, years 5 and 6. Fantastic to have you. Year 6 at Primary School, Coppermill Primary School, Year 4 at Gainsborough, and last but by no means least, we've got Year 3 at Royton Hall Primary School. Welcome one and all. What a wonderful range of classes we have, and I know we have a good dozen countries dialing in to this live lesson. You've put so many amazing questions already on the chat. Do think about using the thumbs up button. So next to each question is a thumbs up button. We'll be answering the most popular questions first. But let's meet Carlos and Diego, who are dialing in all the way from Saudi Arabia, just back from Antarctica. Hi both, how are you getting on?
Hello, thank you very much for this kind invitation. Jamie, my name is Carlos Angulo-Preckler. I'm a research scientist in King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, and I've been focused in studying marine biodiversity, especially in the Red Sea and in the polar environments, and I think we are going to talk today about Antarctica.
Fantastic, Carlos, thank you so much. And Diego, welcome.
Hi, thank you all very much. It's very nice to meet you. I'm Diego. I also study in CAUS. I work as a PhD student, and I'm from Mexico. I tend to focus a little bit more on different environments around the world and try to see how the diversity has changed all around the world. So very excited to share what we found in Antarctica here.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. And this project, this live lesson today, as I mentioned previously, is part of an amazing 5-year science program. It's called the Convex Seascape Survey, and it's been looking at a very understudied part of the world, which we're connecting to a little bit today, and that is the continental shelf. So over the 5 years, working out how the ocean can help us as we try to tackle climate change. But we've got some great things today. I think you're going to take us whale spotting, Carlos and Diego. Then we're going to learn a little bit about how whales affect the climate. And then we'll talk about your research in terms of how do we put numbers to how important whales are. And then, of course, we'll come on to all the amazing questions that are being submitted by classes. So, in your classes, you'll have to make sure you've got your student sheet, your whale spotting guide for this first section. What we're going to do is we're going to see if you can recognize different species of whales. We'll put some video up on screen. You'll have about 30 seconds to decide as a class which whale it is. Do think about typing into the chat app as well your answers. And then Carlos or Diego will be telling you whether you got it right and what they like or know about these different species of whale. just give you a moment. Carlos, Diego, you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Classes ready? I think I heard ready from most classes. So let's roll the first video and we'll see in your classes. So looking at that whale spotting guide, thinking about the shape shape of the blow as well. That's the sort of water coming up as the whale exhales. Thinking about all those things. Go. Brilliant. I wonder how you got on, whether you got that right. Diego, could you reveal what the correct answer is?
Right. So our first whale is actually a blue whale. And think of all of the different animals that have lived over 1 million years. This is actually the biggest that has ever lived. And we're lucky enough to be living alongside it and being able to witness it in person. Fun fact is actually its tongue weighs around the same size as an elephant, and it has a heart the size more or less of a small car. So it's huge.
Huge animal. Diego, thank you so much for that. Are you ready for whale number 2? Let's get that video rolling. Carlos, I think you're going to share with us what whales we can see in that clip.
I'm pretty sure most of the kids has already guessed which whale it is, but of course this is the humpback whale. So one of the main characteristics is that this whale has a unique tail pattern that is very similar like the human's fingerprints. So it's a way to identify individuals on the ocean. Also, it's one of the most abundant in Antarctica, and we were very lucky because we have seen a lot of whales of this species.
Amazing, Carlos. Thank you so much. I think we have have a look. Just focus on the shape of the blow from this next video. Otherwise, it could be a little bit tricky. But let's see how you get on with this next whale coming to you soon. So, Diego, help us out with that one.
Right. I believe most of the students will probably guessed it. This would be the southern right whale. And this is a very interesting one because it's, among all the whales, is the slowest one. And it communicates in a very fun way where most of them would use kind of echolocations or song. This one communicates kind of like burping. So it's very funny to hear it in the ocean.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think we have time. We've got a couple more. I think we've got. Let's have our next whale clip come up now. Carlos, how are we getting on with this one? A little bit tricky as well. So what could you give us for this one?
Yeah, I think this one is not easy, but I hope most of the student has bet for the sperm whale because one of the main characteristics of these whales is that they have the biggest brain in the world. That sometimes the weight can be around 9 kilos, but is amazing. And also one of the food that they are eating mainly usually because they are going very, very deep, around 3,000 meters depth, to hunt for squids and sharks. And I had to say that sadly, this whale, we were not able to spot it in Antarctica this year.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Carlos. And then our final whale coming up now. Diego, help us out. What's our final whale?
Oh, this one is a bit of a favorite of mine, so I think I can identify it well. This is actually a fin whale, and it's super interesting because despite it being the second largest, just behind the blue whale, it's actually the fastest. So you would think it would be a trade-off between speed and size, but actually it's super fast, 25 miles per hour. And with that size, they eat a lot. So they eat more or less the equivalent of a hippo. So you can imagine how much.
Amazing. And I've seen some of the classes have been getting a lot of these right. I wonder how many 5 out of 5s we've got. If you got 5 out of 5, give yourselves a big round of applause. Amazing whale spotting skills. But I hope you find out some interesting facts about these amazing, huge, beautiful creatures living in our ocean. In this next section, what we're going to look at with Carlos and Diego is how these whales can help tackle climate change. So we'll go over a few things and we'll introduce the 3 main ways in which these whales can help tackle climate change. And we've got a little quiz question at the end of each of those methods. But Carlos, just as our classes are just settling down from their whale spotting, I was wondering whether you could just give us a quick overview, just the basics of climate change, maybe for students who haven't really heard of it, but don't really know exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, okay. So I will say that the main concern that we have with the climate change is a gas that is the CO2, the gas that is in the air, and it's a gas that also people, animals, they breathe out, and the plants used to grow. But the problem is when you have too much CO2, because a little bit is okay, this is something normal, it's natural, but the point is when you have an extra CO2, this extra CO2 came always from things like the cars, the trucks, factories, what we call that the fossil fuels, when you burn the fossil fuels. So what happened is like this CO2 is trapped in the atmosphere, So what it's doing is like increase the temperature that we live. So, and this is something that is not natural. That's happened in the past, but what we are watching right now is like it's an exponential increase of this CO2 in the atmosphere that is bringing what we call like the climate change. And there is not any place in the earth that can be safe because this is affecting everywhere. And this is the reason because we are going to Antarctica to study.
Carlos, thank you so much. That's a great explanation. Just to cover the fact that if we have more nature, then that can help tackle climate change. What's going on with that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the most important things that in the past we have been believing that the trees are helping us. So as much as trees as we have, so they're helping us to capture this excess of CO2 that we have in the atmosphere. And this is true. But now we are exploring a little bit another ways that we can reduce this CO2 in the atmosphere. And we will talk about a little bit about that. That is with whales instead with trees.
Whales instead of trees. Diego, what's going on there? I think you're going to tell us about the sort of, how do whales get that plant carbon into their bodies?
Right. So just as trees tend to take CO2 to, grow and essentially be their nutrients, other species that also do this are a lot of green, brown, red algae. And so, of course, as you know, a lot of whale species consume a lot of these algae. And with the amount of algae that are in the ocean and the amount of algae that are eaten by the whales, a lot of the carbon that the algae end up getting ends up going to the whales. So in the end, they are the ones that eventually absorb all of this carbon. So just like the trees, they do it, but under the ocean.
And I know we've got a lot of questions about feeding in coming up on the chat, but we've got this picture of, I think it's a humpback taking a big gulp. How do whales eat, or how do these types of whales eat?
Right. The types of whale that we have here is a baleen whale. So they have this kind of structures in their mouth where they would open their mouth super wide and they would capture everything inside their mouth and they would filter all of the plankton, all the algae, and they would just gulp it all around. So that's how they would get tons and tons per day.
Amazing. And to get an understanding of how big these whales are, I know we've talked about the blue whale being the biggest animal on the planet. We've got a quick quiz poll for you. And the question is, how much does a blue whale weigh? Is it the same as 4 elephants, 40 elephants, or 400 elephants? And we'll give you maybe sort of half a minute, because I know you're brilliant, to guess, or even if you know the right answer to that question. Lots of amazing answers coming. Diego, could you share what the actual answer is? How much does a blue whale weigh in terms of elephants?
In terms of elephants, it was a bit of a tricky question because it's a lot of elephants, but it's 40 elephants.
40 elephants. Amazing. Huge congratulations to all the classes that got that right. So we've got one way that whales help to tackle climate change, eating lots of plants, algae in the ocean, and storing that in their bodies. Carlos, I think you're going to tell us about the second way in which whales can help. It sounds a bit macabre, but tell us about one way that whales can take carbon to the bottom of the ocean and keep it stored there for a long time?
Yeah, actually, this is one of the advantages that we have with the whales respect with the trees, because with the trees, sometimes they release the CO2 to the atmosphere, but with the whales, when they die, they sink to the bottom of the ocean. So what they are doing is like lock the carbon away from the atmosphere. So this also they are helping by a lot of biological process, because you know that the deep of the ocean is like an ocean, like an oasis. So it's like a desert. So the whale is like an oasis of food for a lot of organisms that came to feed on these falling whales. So the other way that they have to helping us to control a little bit the climate change is when they die, they lock the carbon on the bottom of the ocean.
And I think we've got an amazing video of a whale fall getting closer, but I think what we'll start to be able to see is a huge array of different animals on this sort of like ocean floor feast, as you were sort of calling it. Can you describe a little bit about some of the animals and the fuzz that classes may be able to see? Carlos.
Sure, I'm trying to see the video, but it's not reproducing, but doesn't matter. Well, in my experience in Antarctica, one of the first animals that they always arrive, they are like a long worms that they arrive to feed on the bottom, but probably here in the video, we are watching some octopus that also they are feeding. So these animals that they feed on dead animals, they call scavengers. And also, for my experience in Antarctica, you can see like sea stars, you can see amphipods that they are small, teeny animals that they are swimming to the falls. But in this video, exactly, I cannot see what are the animals that they are feeding on. Sorry.
But I think we can see that there's a red fuzz and there's a type of worm. Is there a bone-eating worm that lives in the depths of the ocean?
Yeah, now it's working. Yeah, we have a worms that they are only living in the bones of the whale. That is something amazing and insane. So they are waiting on the bottom of the ocean, and when if a whale fall down, they use this moment to develop and to grow and to feed on the whale, on the bones of the whale, and they call osedax.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I find it amazing. This when I find the answer to this question, which we're going to put up now, I was amazed. And how up to how many years can a whale fall? This is the name we give for a dead whale falling to the bottom of the ocean. How long can it last for in terms of providing food for creatures in the deep? And is it 1 year, 10 years, or up to 100 years? And just have a think about that in your class. And then Carlos will be able to share with you the answer shortly. Carlos, can you, with amazing answers coming through, can you help out classes with the answer to that question?
Sure, you have to think, Amy, that in the bottom ocean, on the ocean, everything is go very slow and it's cold. So I'm bet for 100 years is the time that the whale lasts on the bottom of the ocean.
Absolutely amazing. Carlos, thank you so much. So we've got the living whale storing carbon. We've got the dead whale taking that carbon down to the seabed. And Diego, you've got something a bit. You've got to talk about poo now. tell us why whale poo is important for tackling climate change.
Yeah, it might not be the fanciest topic, but it's still an important one. So just as the whales eat all of these algae, when they eat, they have to poop. And this is actually a cycle that helps not just them, but all of the algae as well. Because when they poop, all of the nutrients that they have eaten and just the normal that they have processed in their bodies are released into the environment. And so all of these nutrients end up being used by other algae. So in the end, it's the full cycle where they eat, they poop, and this poop that is full of krill and algae and all this zooplankton will eventually give life essentially to more and more algae and more zooplankton.
Amazing. So it's almost like fertilizing a garden, but in this case, fertilizing the ocean. I think we've got some pictures here. It's an amazing orangey pink color I can see both floating on the surface. I think it's also coming out of the back of a blue whale there. Where does it get this? What's it like? Let's get into this. What's it like? Why is it this color? What's going on?
Right. So it looks definitely funny. And you can immediately spot it when you're in the ocean and you see just a trail of orange, oh, that's whale poop. And that's just because of the huge amounts of krill that they eat, red in color mostly.
So krill is
this pigment. Yeah, krill is essentially the name of zooplankton in the ocean. Another name for it for specific crustaceans. So with this, all of the pigments of the red that they have eventually end up in the whale's poo. So you end up seeing a lot of orange sometimes.
And it's sort of like it sort of disperses. It's sort of like a cloud.
Yeah, actually, and because the ocean moves constantly, even though it moves up essentially towards the surface, the waves and just the current action disperse it throughout all the ocean. So not just where the whale poops, some of those nutrients may be found a lot distance away. So it's a huge fertilizing cloud of poop.
A huge fertilizing cloud of poop. And we're going to find out what kind of size we're talking about. So we've got our final quiz question to ask you, what is the size of a blue whale poo? Is it enough in one go to fill a bucket, in one go to fill a basin, or in one go to fill a whole bathtub? Have a think about that, and we'll be back with Diego with the answer in just a while. And Diego, can you enlighten us as to how much poo comes from a blue whale in one go?
Right. Well, you have seen it in the pictures, and I'm sure all of you have guessed it correctly. It's enough to fill a bathtub. So 200 liters of whale poop just filling the oceans with fertilizer.
Amazing. Thank you both so very much for that wonderful explanation of how whales help to tackle climate change. We've got one final section before we come to Q&A. And you've spoken about how whales are important, and yet you are down researching this. Why do we need to know a number? Why do we need to know sort of how important they are? If they're just doing a good thing, shouldn't we try and bring as many back as possible? And Diego, I believe this was your first time in Antarctica. What was it like seeing the place for the first time?
For me, it was amazing. It was a truly unique experience, just being able to live through it. And every day it was something new, something amazing. Just the icebergs all around you all the time, seeing these huge ice structures towering over yourself. Then finding out like 2 hours later, you find a bunch of humpback whales just going out there to greet you, or sometimes just an iceberg where some penguins are floating. It's honestly a beautiful and amazing experience.
Thank you, Diego. And Carlos, you were based on a ship there, and you were doing some science. Can you describe sort of one or two of the things that you were studying on board?
Yes, we have been almost 2 months inside of the boat. So it's not easy to live because it's a small place, but we have been very busy doing a lot of different things. So the main thing that we have done is try to collect sediment cores. So it's like kind of tube of the bottom of the ocean where we have all the sediment, because what we want is to analyze the historical changes of the whale population. So how many whales we have in the past and how many whales we have now, to study a little bit how the primary production of the ocean has changed with the years. So the main thing that we are doing every day is to collect the scores. At the end, we were playing with sediment. We were playing with math to understand. So for all the kids for sure understand what we are doing and why was so funny, because we were playing every day with math. We were collecting samples and working, trying to not be seasick a little bit, because you know that there the sea is a little bit rough, but was an amazing experience.
And Carlos, you mentioned the term the primary production. Essentially, what you're looking at is if there were lots of whales in the past, was there lots of this algae growing? And then can we say that if we bring them all back again, we'll have more algae, and that will help to tackle climate change?
Exactly, it's exactly what you say, because we have a primary production in the past with a certain amount of whales, and we have a primary production right now. So what happened? How can the increasing in the number of whales, because we hope to increase the number of whales since the pre-industrial level, that you know all the whaling season that happened and they kill a lot of whales. So now what we are interested in is, once the whale population increase, the primary production is going to increase. Are we going to increase the carbon sequestration? And this is what we want to measure.
Okay, so and then the last part, if we can show that they're awesome at doing this, then we can almost put some money on how important whales are, and then that puts more money into conservation, then we get more whales.
Exactly. You know that there is like a carbon market that some companies has to pay for how much carbon they produce. So it's something similar. So we are going to try to value a whale and say, okay, we need to increase the number of whales because they will help us to reduce the carbon storage. So the idea is like the companies are going to pay to preserve the whales.
Carlos, thank you so much. I think with so many questions, we're going to dive into them. We're going to take them in the order that they have in terms of the number of thumbs up. So if you really get thumbs upping, and we're just going to have a go. So this is from 5MC Valley Primary School. How have whales changed and evolved from the early ancestors? How are you on whale evolution, Carlos and Diego?
Wow, this is a very interesting question and not easy to answer, because you have to come back very long time ago in the past. But they should know that the whales in the past, they were land, so mammifers, of course, but they were living on the land. They were something similar to a lion, then after that evolved to, I will say, like a kind of dog, then a crocodile, and finally they enter in the water looking for prey, looking for food. They enter in the water and they evolve as the whales that we know today.
Amazing. So the land mammals that got happy hunting in the ocean.
Exactly.
We've got Musfira, who year 3 from Royston Hall School. What's been your scariest moment when studying whales?
I will say that the whales is not scary because they are nice, but sometimes we are divers, so we went to the water to collect samples sometimes, and they are other things that they are not whales, like can be the leopard seal. That this one is the most scary thing that I face in my life. The leopard seal, Yeah, they are very dangerous, and they are huge animal with a very big teeth, and I prefer not to find them on the water.
Amazing. We've got from St. Mary's Year 6, which part of the world has the most whales? Who would like to take that? Diego, is that something you're nodding? Are you going to pick
I'd say that's a very interesting one because the whales can be found worldwide, and you can find many different species of whales all around the world. But I would say maybe they are found closer to the equator, where it's a little bit more tropical. So you can find a few more species over there, but you can find a lot of species all around the world.
Yeah, as Diego says, it's very important because the whales are travelers. So they are traveling all around the world because they have like places like are the ground feeding place where they go to feed as Antarctica, but then they are moving to the equator to the reproduction. So actually they are not living in a place. They are moving all around the world. This is why it's so important to preserve the oceans.
Yeah, and an excellent example of this is actually the one that we saw before, which is the humpback whale. And they eat so much, they need to eat so much because sometimes they can spend months without eating at all while they migrate. So they travel very, very high distances in the ocean.
Amazing. Thank you both. From Dr. Tomlinson Middle School, what made you interested in learning about and studying whales? Diego, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. I guess for me, they're of course charismatic animals. They're super fun to watch. They're adorable in a sense. And I was always enthusiastic about mammals and of course about being able to find a solution to the problems that they still face nowadays and try to help out a little bit of, give back a little bit of everything they give for us.
Carlos, do you want to answer that one as well?
Yeah, I say that we as a scientist, we love science, but also if we can show a nice picture to our family is super good. So there is nothing more beautiful than a whale. So I think this is cool because we are lucky. We are doing science, but also we are doing science with whales.
Perfect. I think you covered this, Diego, but just quick questions. We've had a few questions on the poo color. Why is it orange? Why is it pink? What's going on?
All right. Yeah, so this is mostly thanks to all this stuff that they eat, all the krill, which has this pigment discoloration that they eventually will end up being processed in their stomachs and then interpret.
And actually, we can use this question to answer another question that is one of the main threats that is happening in Antarctica. It's like all the animals that you can see in Antarctica, all the seals, the whales, the birds, all are feeding on krill. So it's a very specific tropic web that all of them rely on krill. The krill is this little shrimp that you can see that is red, and this is the reason why the poo of the whales are, but not also the poo of the whales, the poo of the penguins, the poo of the seals, all are pooing red in Antarctica. So we have to be careful to protect the krill because it's the food for all of them.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Carlos. This is from Class 4 Chancellor Park Primary School. And they're talking about when the water goes up from the blowhole, how high does it go? And is this like a species dependent? And they've got a follow-on question, but let's do the blowhole first. How high does it go?
I think from what I remember, the highest one that has been recorded has been a blue whale, of course, the biggest one, and it's been about 9 meters in the air, so really, really high. But yes, indeed, it is species dependent.
I would like to make a point here because most of the people think that they are blowing water, looks like, but they are blowing air because they are breathing. What happens is like this condensate and there is water around, but it's important to figure out that they are blowing air, not water.
Perfect. Thank you. here we go. This is an anonymous question, but it's how do whales survive in the cold oceans?
So whales have this, oh, sorry. Specifically, more southern whales have this very interesting kind of layer around them, which is just fat, and it covers them. It's called, I think, blubber or something like that. So it helps keep them warm and helps keep their heat even in this very, very cold condition.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've got also from Dr. Thompson Middle School, why do whales get barnacles on them?
Because actually, everything that you submerge underwater is going to be colonized by the sea life. And barnacles are one of the main colonizers of the structures, and they don't care if it's a life or death structure. So for them, it's beautiful. It's like kind of symbiosis or parasitism relationship where they are getting like a bus for free. So they go to the whale and they got transport for free. So what is perfect for them. But it's not just the whale. You can see if you walk on the beach and you see like a piece of wood, a piece of plastic arriving to the shore. So try to take a look because for sure they are going to have passengers on top.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Carlos. This is year 5 from Sear Green Church of England School. It was reported in the news that a whale swallowed and spat out a human. How did it know not to eat it or digest the human?
It's a very good question, but also it's important to know that even the mouth is very big, the throat is small because they feed on phytoplankton, so they don't need to have a big throat. So it's not possible to eat a human. They can put on the mouth, but then it's going to be the same that when you are eating the soup and a fly came to you, what that going to do? You are going to realize and you are going to spit out. So this is what the whale did with this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We've got 6JS at Valley Primary School would like to know, are whales social creatures?
Oh yeah, they're super social. Also dependent on the species, but most of them do form, it's called pods, and they form these essential associations to them. And they're actually super, super intelligent animals. They have a very wide array of communications through song, through the use of sounds. There are many different studies that have found out that they can even whisper to their babies. They can communicate to just play, to feed. So they're super intelligent animals. They're very social animals.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Also has been, I think in whales has not studied yet, but probably it's the same, but in dolphins, they are calling each other by his own name. So they have the names, so they recognize each other and they call them with the specific names. So we thought that is the same for the whales, but for now has been only studied in dolphins.
Carlos and Diego, we've got like sort of 18 seconds left and 102 questions to answer. I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Would it be okay if we shared some of these and we can send some written answers to some of the questions that we haven't been able to answer? Would that be okay by you two?
Sure, we will be more than happy to try to answer, but I have to say that there are some tricky and very difficult questions.
Yeah, you guys are very intelligent, but we'll try our best.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. Thank you so much to all the classes who are watching. We will try and answer as many questions as possible. I'd love to stay answering well questions with Carlos and Diego for another hour and so. You probably love to too, but very sadly, that's all we have time for today. So just, I think, massive round of applause from all the classes from me, for Carlos and Diego. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, insight, and passion for nature and for whales. And thank you to all the classes who've been watching. I've seen you've been, as Carlos and Diego said, amazing questions, really tough ones. Great poll answers. You've been fab. Have a great rest of British Science Week. Until the next time, it's goodbye from us. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much,
Goodbye.
Jamie.
Thank you very much.